Hey everyone, I'm Rod and Todd, a professional YouTuber who makes professional videos. And Tiny Turbo Changers has released a new wave of figures. And as YouTube's premier Tiny Turbo Changers reviewer, I feel the duty to review them. Yeah, so Tiny Turbo Changers is a really good Transformers line that has suffered from a lot of stock issues in recent years. Now, I do mean a lot of stock issues. Pretty much ever since Wave 1 back in 2017, there have been hordes upon hordes of issues. The figures all still remain great, mostly. There are some bad ones. But it just, for some reason, these never get shipped out to retail. At least not in the United States. Wave 1 was widely available. Wave 2 I only ever found at Targets in Arizona. Yep. Wave 3 I had to order off eBay, but I think I did later find them at some toy place somewhere, I don't know. Wave 4 I got at my local Kroger store, and Wave 5 I could only ever find at Target in extremely limited numbers. I consider myself very fortunate to have all of Wave 5. And the first 5 waves were based off of the Michael Bay movies, but then, after that, they decided to shift gears and focus on the Cyberverse cartoons. They were basically Generation 1 designed Tiny Turbo Changers, which was cool at first, but there's still some pretty bad issues with the stock. So Cyberverse Wave 1, readily available. I found them at Kroger, and they were super easy to find. Wave 2, it was announced, found in Asia and Canada, and then about a year later, it was finally available in America, but only at Targets. Wave 2 was horrible because it reused all 12 molds from Wave 1, but it changed the deco of 4 of them and released the other 8 completely the same. So I only ever got the 4 special ones. Then Wave 3 was announced shortly after Wave 2, and I don't own that one because it was only ever released in Canada. And it was only ever released in Canada because this is Wave 4, which was released very recently. This one was kind of complicated, because after Wave 3, I honestly thought Tiny Turbos was finally dead. It feels, honestly, like this is a line that just needs to be put out of its misery. I'm glad they're still making figures, but if you're going to make them to where they're almost impossible to find, then there's no point in making a line anymore if it's going to be this hard to find. So, after Wave 3, I thought Tiny Turbos was finally dead. However, then someone randomly found Wave 4 in Canada, and as with Wave 3, I thought it was never going to come here, but recently someone found these at Target in the United States, and so I went to like 15 different Targets in about 2 different states, and after forever of searching for them, I finally found them, or found all 12 of them. It took forever, but I got all 12 of them, which is great. So, I'm going to be reviewing them. And there's going to be a few bonuses thrown in there about halfway through, which I think you're going to enjoy. So, let's get started. There are 6 Redecos and 5 new molds, and 1 which I'd kind of consider to be in the middle. So we'll start with the Redecos first. Let's just get all these guys out of here. And we'll start with, in my opinion, the lamest one of the bunch. Ironhide, or Ironhide. So, Ironhide was never in the Cyberverse cartoon. So, the reason why he's getting a figure here? Sheer laziness. You see, they released Ratchet in Cyberverse Wave 3. I don't have him for comparison because, again, it was never released here. So, yeah. So again, Ironhide was never in Cyberverse, but since Ratchet and Ironhide always share the same body, and therefore the same toy, with a different head and occasionally a few other pieces, Hasbro reasoned, hey, a cheap reuse of the Ratchet mold, because we need another figure in this wave, and we can't think of any, and We don't want to spend any more money on these new molds because we're only going to ship like 3 of them to stores. And yeah, so Ironhide is basically just Ratchet in red. Again, I don't have Ratchet for comparison, but whatever. It's a big red van with blue windshield. We don't often get painted windshields in Tiny Turbo Changers because for some reason they are wildly inconsistent with the paint. Sometimes they paint in the tires and the windshield, sometimes they don't, sometimes they only paint in one or the other. It's kind of confusing. So whenever they paint in the windshields or the tires, it's depressing to say, but it makes the figure feel a little more premium than the others. So, yeah, it's a big red van, nothing much to say. There's some nice sculpting. You can't really see it because it's so bright, but yeah, got some decent sculpting. And since it's just Ratchet in red, it has the light bar from the ambulance mode on the top. So, now let's get this thing into its robot mode. So here's Ironhide's robot mode. As with the vehicle mode, it is just Ratchet in red. And you think this figure would be alright, but there is one fatal flaw that is just terrible. Ready for this? Are you ready? You sitting? Okay, here it comes. Yeah, so half of his vehicle mode is just on his arms, just sticking out there. You can't really see it too well from the front, but turn to the side and... Oh, that is bad. I was wondering why people were complaining about the Ratchet mold in Wave 3, because, again, I don't own that one. So people were saying it was really, really bad. Now I see why. He does have articulation in his arms, ball joints. However, due to this piece being so big, it gets stuck on his front bumper, which forms his feet. So, again, I gotta put in a bit of effort. If this was made out of a harder plastic and not this soft vinyl, which these figures are made out of, this probably would have been broken by now. Because really, this thing is just, it's not good. It's not very good at all. It's my least favorite out of this wave, and yeah. So, there have been a few other clear Redeco figures in Tiny Turbo Changers history. There was the Stealth Lockdown, or Phantom Strike Lockdown, I believe it was called, in Wave 3. As you can see, this was the first all-clear Tiny Turbo Changer, and it's really good. I like this one. And then there was this really weird version of Grimlock from Wave 4. I don't really understand this one. It has no context at all. It's got bright green on it for some reason. And it's kind of translucent. It's not completely transparent like with Stealth Lockdown, but it's kind of translucent. So I thought I'd include it here. But it's this weird version of Grimlock. So, yeah, there have been all clear figures before, but those were only one per wave. This set of figures truly popularized it. There were 3 in this wave that were clear plastic. So let's get all 3 of them out of the way, shall we? This is Energon Optimus Prime. It's a clear blue redeco of the regular Optimus Prime from Cyberverse Wave 1. And he turns into the cab over truck mode that Cyberverse Prime turns into. Of course, it's based off the Generation 1 version, or whatever. Something really cool, I do like the metallic blue painted in tires. He doesn't have his windshield painted in, but whatever. I don't really understand why it's called Energon Optimus Prime, unless this is supposed to be a version of Optimus that's made out of Energon. So, yeah, it's just your generic Optimus Prime truck mode. Nothing too special, but it's in clear blue, and it looks actually pretty decent. So, let's get him transformed. So here's Energon Optimus Prime in his robot mode with the regular Prime for comparison. As you can see, it's just, once again, the same, but in clear blue, with a lot less paint apps, unfortunately. So, He does have the metallic blue paint on his eyes. That looks pretty good. And as with the regular Optimus Prime, he has this piece here, this big long piece, wondering why his arms are asymmetrical like that. It's because there's a sculpted axe right there. It's not very deeply sculpted. You can't see it very well. It's unpainted, but it is there. And as with the regular Optimus Prime, if you can't stand that axe being permanently deployed, you can just remove that and just put it off to the side and have him with two normal arms. Which, I don't know if that was intentional, but if it was, that's actually pretty smart. Just don't lose this piece if you choose to keep it off, because not only does it form an integral part of the vehicle mode, but if you lose it, you're going to have a hard time tracking down a replacement, because these things are hard to find. He has pretty loose joints, as you can see, just kind of flopping everywhere. I'm not a big fan of that, but whatever. So, that's Energon Optimus Prime. Moving on. Here's Dark Energon Shockwave. I guess it's supposed to be the opposite of Energon Optimus Prime, so why they chose Shockwave instead of Megatron, I don't know. But this is a clear purple redeco of the basic Shockwave figure from Cyberverse Wave 1. And he turns into this little turret on legs, which is supposed to be, that's what he turns into. And it does do a pretty good job of replicating his alternate mode in the cartoon, except for the fact that this isn't based off his alternate mode in the cartoon. In the show, Shockwave's alternate mode was a lot bigger and was a lot wider than this, but it looked mostly like this. This is more based off of the drones that Shockwave would always have accompanying him in the cartoon, which looked very similar to his alternate mode, except they looked a little more like this. They had these claws at the front, and yeah. So if you have one of the larger Cyberverse Shockwave toys, you can army build either of these guys, really. Just buy multiples of them, and just go nuts. Of course, there is kind of a bit of an inaccuracy. In the cartoon, it's supposed to have 4 legs here. However, these are 2 big legs that are sculpted to look like 2 individual legs kind of next to each other. So it's kind of front heavy. The gun barrel can rotate. Cool, cool. And what I like is that the hose here is actually picked out in paint, which isn't what this one is. So that's good. So now let's move on to the robot. So here's Dark Energon Shockwave's robot mode. Again, it is just the same as the basic Shockwave, but in clear purple. I actually like the clear purple because it's a darker shade of purple. But yeah, so it's basically the same. However, they took the silver paint that's on Shockwave's chest here and put it on the hose and gun barrel, which I like a lot more because it actually helps you see it. The hose is present here, but since it's not painted, you don't see it very well. Now there's Dark Energon Shockwave. Okay, the last of the clear redecos, Stealth Force Bumblebee. It's always a tradition to redeco Bumblebees where they invert the yellow and black and make it black and yellow as some sort of stealth upgrade. They even did this with the movie Bumblebee figure all the way back in Wave 1 with Night Strike Bumblebee. I prefer this one over this one because it's just a better figure, but they're both stealth Bumblebees, so I thought they were comparable. Here is him next to the, don't hit the camera, here's him next to the basic Bumblebee. As you can see, it is just the same with the colors inverted. For some reason, Stealth Bumblebee has bright yellow wheels, which kind of undermines the whole stealth aspect. I honestly feel like it would have been better if they just left this unpainted, but they probably felt like they needed to include some sort of yellow on this figure. They'll let the kids know it is indeed Bumblebee. A complaint I have about this is he doesn't have the yellow stripes on the hood. If you wanted to truly make this an inverted Bumblebee, you could have done that, but I'm not really... That doesn't ruin the figure for me. It's still better. Actually, I do think this is better than the base Bumblebee for reasons I'll get to right now. So here's Stealth Bumblebee in his robot mode. Again, it is the exact same as regular Bumblebee, just with the colors inverted. And it's here where I get to my one praise about this figure. So, my Wave 1 Bumblebee has a super loose joint here at the waist. It does not stay well together. It all falls over a lot. And this one improved on it completely. I mean, for all I know, this could just be mine. It may not be an issue with every one of these, but this one has a tighter joint right here at the waist, and that makes all the difference. He still has the little blue stinger, or the little stinger blast there. However, on this one it was painted in blue, and this one it just clear black, so it's kind of harder to see. It's a really thin piece of black plastic, and you can see it better now. I don't know why this is clear. It could have just been opaque black plastic, but at least it sets it aside from the Night Strike Bumblebee. Okay, so this is Wheeljack. So, just like with Jazz, Wheeljack is one of those figures who you'd be stupid to pass up for a line like this. However, we didn't get movie Jazz and Tiny Turbo Changers back when they were still doing the movies, and we only ever got Jazz in this line as a redeco of Drift. Even then, I only feel like they were doing it because they needed someone to redeco from Drift in Wave 2. They did the same with Wheeljack, because this isn't Wheeljack. This is Hot Rod in Wheeljack's colors. So, do the guys behind Tiny Turbo Changers just hold a resentment towards Jazz and Wheeljack? Because it honestly feels like this figure only exists because they were forced to or something. It's like, okay, fine, we'll do Wheeljack, but it'll be a redeco of Hot Rod. Also, Hot Rod was redecoed into Sideswipe in Wave 2, and there's also the all-black Stealth Hot Rod in Wave 3, which I don't have. I do like the paint on this vehicle mode, though. If the tires are painted in black or the exhaust pipes are painted in silver, it would have been better. But it's got a big black windshield, and it has the green stripes on the front of the hood, which I think is pretty good. If this were a new mold, it would have been better, but whatever. So, I guess we gotta get to his robot mode now. So here's Wheeljack's robot mode. Again, it's pretty good for Hot Rod. This isn't Wheeljack, it's just Hot Rod and Wheeljack's colors, and that's the major gripe. For comparison, here's Hot Rod from Wave 1 and Sideswipe in Wave 2. Again, missing is the Stealth Hot Rod. I basically picture this, but in black. That's what Stealth Hot Rod is. And so, Wheeljack, I kind of like how the green stripes in the hood carry on to his feet, at least that's something. And his face is painted black, because in the cartoon, Wheeljack had a big mustache, and I guess this is what they were trying to represent with that. Eyes are painted in, which is a first, considering Hot Rod and Sideswipe just left the eyes the same color as their face, which looks creepy. And just like with Hot Rod, he has the flame pieces shooting up from the top of his arms, which I don't like very much. It doesn't look very good. Personally, what I would have done, if this is supposed to be like flamethrowers or something, have it sculpted out of here on the other end of the exhaust pipe, and since that's this part here, what turns into the back of the car, and this is hidden away in vehicle mode, have it where it's like big flames shooting out of the exhaust or something. I honestly feel like that's what they wanted to do, but for some reason the flames are on the top, and that looks kind of weird. I still wouldn't have liked it if they went with that, but at least it would have been better than this. A lot of people are complaining about how the hot rod mold, the flames bump into his back. Spoiler here. What are you talking about? This is I don't understand why people complain about that. It isn't bumping into him at all. So anyway, that's Wheeljack, or Hot Rod in Wheeljack's colors. And now we get to Slipstream. Slipstream is really the only Redeco here that makes any true amount of sense. Because Slipstream's a Seeker, which means you get to reuse the Starscream mold, baby. So here's Starscream in Wave 2 Acid Storm. Now Slipstream's kind of unique. She's the female Starscream, basically, the female Seeker. And Slipstream had a pretty big role in Season 1 of Cyberverse, where she was basically the commander of a team of Seekers on Earth. And that was really what she did. She was kind of one of the major antagonists of Season 1. And then in Season 2, she took over Starscream as leader of the Seekers after Starscream died, in quotation marks. Yeah, spoilers, by the way. If you haven't seen Cyberverse, it's on YouTube. Go watch it. So Starscream was basically killed by Megatron because Megatron was angry at Starscream or something. However, Starscream actually survived. Everyone thought he was dead, but he survived. And Starscream believed he was ordained by the Cybertronian equivalent of God to commit mass genocide. So he basically took all the other Seekers with him except for Slipstream, killed all the other Seekers after they did the work for him, and yeah, Starscream had gone completely bonkers. And basically Slipstream noticed what Starscream was doing, and she went out to go tell the Autobots, who at the time were trying to have a peace treaty with the Decepticons. And then one of the other Decepticons thought Slipstream had turned traitor or something, and then just kind of killed her. So Slipstream died in about halfway through Season 2. And this wave is very much based off of Season 3, with a lot of characters who had their first appearance in Season 3 making an appearance in this toy line. I jokingly said earlier, they're never going to make a Slipstream figure, at least not in this line, and they did. Irony. So yeah, Slipstream is the same jet mode as Starscream. Of course, as you can see, Starscream is completely gray for no reason. Acid Storm is a bright green with yellow. Slipstream is bright purple on one half and bright turquoise, teal, whatever you call that color, on the other half. I honestly wish the jet cockpit were painted in, because it's, other than that, there's like no detail here. Of course, something I do like about this mold is that they actually bothered to make it to where the null rays in robot mode are pointed forward in vehicle mode, which is just a nice little transformation quirk. It's probably intentional, but yeah, it was definitely intentional, but whatever. So that's Slipstream's vehicle mode. Of course, my one complaint about it that I have with all the Seeker molds is that the legs don't like collapse together in vehicle mode, so it just looks like the jet has two tails. So on the robot mode. So here's Slipstream's robot mode, as the same as Starscream. And I forgot to transform Starscream while I was cut away, so let me just do that right now. Here's her next Starscream. And Acid Storm, once I get him transformed. See, something I don't like about Slipstream is that there's no paint on her face. You see, Acid Storm, as you can see, has bright silver on his face, so you can see it easier. Starscream doesn't have any paint, but that's okay, because the black kind of frames it, and it allows you to see it better. However, Slipstream just has nothing. She's all purple on the top, except for her red eyes. So, it's really hard to make out any sort of detail. I dig the blue legs, but I honestly feel like they could have put more paint here. And of course, my one major complaint about this mold in general is the arms cannot move forward because they are connected to the wings. So if you want to have her shooting someone, she has to have her arms stuck out to the side like this. And with no head joint, you can't turn her head to make her look that way, so it just looks awkward. Also, she has her jet nose cone on her back, but also the jet nose cone on the chest there, which, nah. I mean, it still makes the robot mode look good, it's just that's kind of weird. So that's Slipstream. Now we get to the confusing part. Meet Gnaw. I said earlier there was this one mold that was kind of in between the Redeco and the new mold state. And that is Gnaw. So Gnaw is weird. See, this guy requires a bit of context, really. See, we can't talk about Gnaw without first talking about these guys. And, yeah, so in between Wave 3 and Wave 4, I thought Tiny Turbo Changers was truly dead. And so at this point, Hasbro cranked out a pair of Target exclusive 4-packs, which included a one-step changer figure and 3 Tiny Turbo Changer sized figures, which were new molds. All 3 of the figures in each pack shared the exact same mold with a few paint differences. So this first one here was the Decon pack, which came with Stealth Hot Rod and the Decons. They are pretty much completely identical, except for this one. These two are the exact same. They have green stripes on the back. This one, the only difference is the orange stripes on his back. So you could maybe have these be like the generic army builders, and this be like the commander, or maybe have Gnaw be the commander, if you want. And all 3 of these guys are pretty much completely identical in robot mode if you ignore the stripes. So I'll only be taking a look at one of them in robot mode. So here's the robot mode. It is identical amongst all 3 of them if you ignore the stripes on the back. So, yeah, it's a little Decon pack, and now I'll get Gnaw out here to compare. So here's Gnaw's robot mode. As you can see, it's a visibly darker shade of gray, which I actually kind of prefer. And it's lacking a lot of paint applications that these figures have. I'd kind of consider these, if they were actually good figures, to be like premium Tiny Turbo Changers. Something I do like is that he has green eyes in his shark mode, and that carries over to robot mode. That's just a nice little touch there. So yeah, that's Gnaw next to these guys. There's another 3-pack which I'm going to review right now, because the ones from here didn't actually make it into Wave 4. So this is the Repugnus set, and despite Repugnus being an Autobot, these are all Decepticons. Yeah, I don't understand it either. So it has the one-step changer as this little feature here. I won't be going in depth. This one here is just a redeco of the normal Repugnus one-step changer. The other 3 guys are new molds. Can't really get him to stand up. He's a bit back heavy. There we go. So then these 3 are just these little insect guys. Got the red one, which is based directly off of the character Repugnus, and these 2 are original decos. And since they're not identical in robot mode, as you can probably tell, I'll be showing them all off in robot mode. So here's the little Bugabots in their robot mode, or robot modes. There are a couple complaints I have about these. They're not very good figures, for one. So these guys don't have any arm articulation at all. You think it would be super easy to just have like a swivel joint or a ball joint here, but no, these arms just connected to the torso and you can't move them, which sucks for posing and stuff like that. And if you compare it to most Tiny Turbo Changers figures, these guys have a lot beefier proportions, which makes them kind of look awkward when you put them next to a lot of your other figures. But yeah, that's really all to say about those guys. They're just fun little bonuses that I'd throw in there, because they're technically Tiny Turbos, but at the same time, not. So now we have the 5 new molds. So this is Cup. Cup is a weird inclusion. So Cup was, in fact, in Tiny Turbo Changers, or not Tiny Turbo Changers, Cyberverse Season 3. He didn't do much, but he was in there. So why that was enough to warrant a brand new figure made out of him, I don't know. I mean, I like it, but I don't know. Well, it turns out it was basically just his Generation 1 pickup truck mode. As with Starscream, his legs don't collapse from one truck bed, so it looks like he has two truck beds, but I don't mind this one as much as Starscream. Really, the only paint application here is the windshield. The thing I do like about it, though, he has the wheels here, and then about half wheels here. None of these figures have rolling wheels, by the way. Just I thought I'd mention that, but whatever. So that's Cup's truck mode, so now let's move on to the robot mode. So this guy's pretty decent in his robot mode, honestly. I like the silver face and the blue eyes, and because of the way it transforms, there's really nothing weird or bulky sticking off awkwardly on this figure. It's not like Ironhide or it's like this. It's nowhere near as extreme as that. Like, he still does have the entire front of his truck mode on his arms, but it works. It really does work. I just wish this figure had a little more pizzazz. This guy's pretty bland, really. Just due to the lack of paint apps on his chest or anything. It's just meh. So, here's Skybite. Skybite was from the 2001 Robots in Disguise. It's a different Robots in Disguise than what you may be thinking of. It was an anime from the early 2000s that was dubbed over in English and was on Fox Kids. And it was a Transformers cartoon. And Skybite was one of the original characters to that cartoon. He was a Decepticon shark. His whole thing was he was a poet, and he would always be spouting off haikus. He was kind of like the comic relief villain guy, and he quickly became a fan favorite. And then he just kind of vanished for years, making a few cameos and some comics here and there, but overall not doing much. And then he showed up in Cyberverse Season 2. So in that cartoon, he ditched the comedic aspects altogether and was an actual threat. He was matched up against Jetfire. These two are supposed to be sworn enemies. And since they both got figures in this line, there you go. So, Skybite's a shark, plain and simple. In the cartoon, it was a flying shark. And the little side fins here even kind of look like wings. With some little, maybe laser cannons on them. Got the big shark snout with some metallic blue paint on there. Some red eyes, got the big claw in the back. It's just a shark. It's a cool shark. It's much more of a shark than the Sharkticons, ironically enough, but it's a shark. In robot mode, is where I get to my major complaints. See, Skybite has been predominantly blue, but he's always had some yellow and some white always on him. That's kind of his main color scheme, is blue, yellow, and white. Do you see any yellow or white on him? Yeah, he's all blue. It looks wrong, but it's alright, I guess. Kind of like how the back shark fin, the dorsal fin, forms a little head crest. And he does have the signature claw that Skybite is known for having. And the shark snout, the top of it, is kind of sculpted like a drill, so maybe you could have it be like a drill arm or something. And you can still match him up against Tiny Turbo Changers Jetfire for that cool cartoon rivalry. So now we get to the OCs. Yeah, Cyberverse, especially in Season 3, was infamous for introducing these OCs, which they would have this spotlight episode, but then they would pretty much contribute nothing after that, making a few cameos here and there, but not doing much. Then again, that was really Cyberverse's thing. It would just drop new characters on you with no explanation. They would maybe have 2 or 3 scenes to themselves, and then they would just be there in the background forever, before randomly taking on a starring role in Season 3. I'm looking at you, Chromia, who only appeared in like 30 seconds of Season 1, but then suddenly became a main character in Season 2. Anyway, so there were a couple OCs that got Tiny Turbo Changer figures. We'll start with my least favorite, Thunder Owl. He's an Autobot knight, and he turns into this wolf. There's no tail on the wolf, unfortunately. But it does have some good sculpting. He's got some back fins and stuff. They're supposed to be like fur, but it kind of looks like back fins. As with most quadruped transformers, it's kind of hard to get them to stand up perfectly because the legs have to be in perfect alignment or else it won't work. But yeah, there's Thunderhowl's Wolf mode. In robot mode, you reach a common problem with most Cyberverse toys. I'm looking at you, Grimlock, and also Thunderhowl. In the cartoons, they would have normal faces with two separate eyes and a mouth. However, for some reason, literally all the toys, except for maybe one of them, has it to where they have this battle mask which covers their eyes with a big visor and their mouth with the face plates, which you cannot remove. However, in the cartoon, they would probably only ever use those in like one episode, and you could barely see it because it'd be in the background. So as with Grimlock, it's the same problem. I don't really mind as much on this figure because it actually looks cool, like he's something, I don't know, but it's just a little gripe. I do like how the head of the wolf does fold down on his chest plate. I've always loved it on like Beast Transformers, like in Beast Wars or whatever, where the head of the animal would fold down and form their chest. I always liked it when they would do that. Of note, the front claws on the wolf just kind of sit there on his hands. So they kind of look like he's got Wolverine claws. So, there you go. Wild Wheel is the second to last one we have today. And Wild Wheel is kind of unique. He actually has a pretty decent story. Basically, he was an Autobot who was part of the ARC crew. He was part of an Autobot crew on this big ship. Of course, you didn't see him until Season 3, because I don't know what he was doing in Seasons 1 and 2, but whatever. And so, the ARC, it broke apart in the atmosphere of Earth, and a lot of the Autobots accidentally fell out of the ARC and crash landed. Wild Wheel was one of them, and he landed in the Earth, and he was offline, like unconscious, for centuries, until he woke up in the Wild West times and had to become an outlaw to survive. After that, he got mad at Prime for not coming back to find him, so he swore vengeance on the Autobots and became a Decepticon. I kind of like it when there's an Autobot that becomes a Decepticon, or a Decepticon that becomes an Autobot. That's just always cool to see loyalties switching like that. However, Wild Wheel is kind of weird. So he appeared in one episode where he showed up to menace Optimus for a bit, and then he just kind of vanished, and then like 3 episodes later, he was with Megatron as his second in command. Yeah. So he turns into this car. It's supposed to be a Cybertronian hover car. And in the cartoon, Wild Wheel is much more of like a dark brown color. It does look kind of brownish on camera, but believe me when I say this is like a almost like a fuchsia shade. Can't really see it well on camera, but that's what I'm seeing. So, Wild Wheel did get a larger toy, which it wasn't a hover car. It didn't have the wheels like this. It just had 4 free spinning wheels. And so, for once, the non-spinning wheels on these figures actually comes in handy, because it allows you to make it like this, or it's more accurate to the cartoon. Which, awesome. There's a metallic purple windshield, and that's really all I have to say about paint apps on this vehicle mode. So now let's move on to the robot. So here's Wild Wheel's robot mode. Since he's supposed to be like a Wild West outlaw, he has his cowboy hat on for no reason. And he has this silver bandolier. I think the bandolier looks cool, the cowboy hat not so much. He also has a beard, which is actually pretty nicely sculpted in. And some nice paint on the face, too. But yeah, it's really all I have to say about this guy. Oh yeah, except for one other thing. These little vehicle mode panels are just kind of stuck under his arms. If it were a harder plastic, I would be much more stressed about breaking it. But since these guys are kind of soft plastic, it really doesn't matter. Okay, last one. This is Alpha Strike. And Alpha Strike is a trademark altered name for the Decepticon Striker, who appeared in the cartoon in Season 3. Just like Cup, she really didn't do much, but that still warranted her getting a figure. And yeah, so she's a tank. This isn't a tiny turbo changer. This is a mega turbo changer. As you can see, when I put her behind Bumblebee, she is approximately double the width of a standard tiny turbo changer's figure, with these gigantic treads. She's also really, really tall with those cannons. So yeah, this thing is a tank. It's got the big cannons, some flat black paint on the treads, and it's a bright shade of orange that I describe as Cheeto colored. So it's a good tank. I like it. So now let's move on to the robot mode, where we get to my one major complaint about this figure. So this is Alpha Strike's robot mode. Once again, it's not really a tiny turbo changer. It's a mega turbo changer because it's, again, double the width of a standard figure. You can even play this up, make her like the strongest Decepticon there is. There you go, die Bumblebee, die. So, yeah, this does look like Striker, or Alpha Strike, or whatever. It has the big cannons on the shoulders, the head sculpt looks nice. But, do you notice something missing? I'll give you a second to figure it out. You don't see it? You don't see it at all. Okay, well, for those of you who aren't very familiar with the character of Striker, Striker has been around since the 90s, and ever since then, her primary color scheme has been pink. Like a dark pink, like basically the like the fuchsia shade that Wild Wheel is. That's kind of what her main color has been. There's always been a bit of orange on her, but not much. She's been primarily pink. This is orange, bright orange. You could have just molded her out of the same color of plastic Wild Wheel is. Maybe put a few orange like paint apps on something, and I wouldn't have minded at all. Even if you didn't have any paint apps in the robot mode and you molded it in that shade of plastic, it would have been good. I don't know what they were thinking, molding it out of bright orange. If any of you work for Hasbro and you see this, let me know what they were thinking when they designed this. I mean, there's a highly unlikely chance that that's happening right now, but let me know. I don't know what they were thinking. I still think this is the best figure out of the set. It's certainly my favorite, just because it's so big. But, like, it's just the wrong color entirely. So anyway, that was my review of the Tiny Turbo Changers Wave 4. If you enjoyed, if you're still here, really, thanks for sticking to the end. And if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications and blah blah blah. So, thank you all for watching, and this has been Ron Todd signing off.